Introduce myself. I'm Dr. Amanda Ford. I'm a games lecturer at West College, Scotland, but I have been involved for about the past 15 years now in sort of doing a lot of work with primary schools, secondary schools, and games educations and games jams, mini game jams. I ran the very first one in 2013 in a secondary school. And I've done that for quite a few years. And I'm going to talk to you today. So we're going to kick off with the sort of with the game jam, and I'm going to give you the theme as well for this week. So let me just get started, and I'll share my screen without sharing my PowerPoint with everybody. So game jams in general, let's have a wee look. Let me just get... Okay, everybody loves playing games, right? Okay, from, you know, whether it's on your mobile phone or your computer or your console, we all love playing them, right? But the game jam is obviously, it's about making rather than actually playing. Obviously, a couple of games there you'll be familiar with, right? Minecraft, Wordle, and Roblox, right? Everybody plays games, including your teachers, okay? We all play games of some sorts. My favourite ones are Animal Crossing and Pokemon Go. So I play on my Switch and my phone, okay? But I also enjoy making things as well. And I teach my students how to make games. And that's what we're going to look at today. So all games have got to come from an idea, right? A game jam is essentially a place where you're given a theme, right, to work from. And this is normally just one word that you interpret your own way. Okay, so every year around the world, there's a thing called Global Game Jam, and it's where universities run a long weekend for making games. And they had the theme of heartbeat, right? And one team interpreted that as, and they made a game called Lub versus Dub, which is essentially the noise that the heart makes. That was an extremely. They went on to develop this, and they win many awards for it. They actually now get a games company in Glasgow, and they're called Screenburn Interactive. So they started off as just, a group of uni students making the game, over one weekend, but it got developed. They further developed it to actually bring it into something a bit more. Okay, and that's what we're going to be looking at, is giving you a theme, and you are going to interpret that the way, that you think. There's no right or wrong answers. It's how you interpret that word. Right, so I'm going to give you an example first before I actually give you the theme, right? And this was one that I went over with the teachers in the previous session. And my theme was, so I put the term another world, and I just want everybody to have a wee think, right? So what springs to mind when you hear those words, another world? Okay, just, what's the first thing that springs to mind for you? And this is something that I came up with. So words that I think another world can be interpreted as are things like aliens, planets, if you're into your superheroes, the multiverse, daydreaming, another version of Earth, your imagination, make-believe, all things that I associate with another world. You might have something different there as well. But essentially, that's what you do. When you're given a theme, you think of words that you associate with that theme, and that's how you then start to form your ideas for your game based on that theme. So obviously you've got the theme. You then decide what association to the theme you have, okay? And you're then going to start to break things down, right? This is where we start to get into the creative process, and we break things down. So your first sort of question is, right, well, what's my game about? You will be put into teams, right? The object of the game jam is to work in teams, normally of about 3 or 4, and have a chat, make notes, because obviously if there's 4 of you, you're all going to have a different idea of what that word means to you. So have a chat and decide how you're going to take this forward, right? Break it down, and we then start getting into the finer details. You're going to look at, well, will your game have a narrative? And if not, what are the objectives? All games will have an objective, right? Not all games need to have a story. This game that I've put up here, you might know, it's a classic. It's an older game, but it's called Pong. Nice and easy to make in Scratch, by the way. Classic game, doesn't have a story to it, right? It's simply 2 bats and a ball, and you've got to score the most points. That's it. Nothing more to it. Whereas if you think of other games like take Minecraft, for example, there is a story to that. Okay, you have got, you know, your kind of story mode to that. Obviously, there's a lot of objectives along the way as well that you have to meet. Okay, you're crafting and then eventually getting, you know, to your final battle in the game. So that's something you need to think about. Will your game have a story? So my idea, right, for another world, I've went with an alien character. Okay, right, and my little character is called Mandy, and they're stranded on a wee island called Benbecula. The objective for my little character, okay, Mandy, is to travel around the Western Isles and collect parts for their broken spaceship to enable them to get home to their planet, Alien Dorka. This, again, you know, this is just something that, for me, the alien idea just popped into my head, and then I start to think, right, well, what's going to happen? Okay, and alien spaceships, different planets. That's how my thinking came about in that. And I have just used, for this particular one, I have just used places that I know, right? So Benbecula is obviously in the Western Isles, up north. One of my favourite places to go on holiday. So I decided to have a little bit of fun with that. I've given a little backstory. So once you've got your character, right, I have given a little backstory to it, right? So my little alien was planning a trip to the other side of their planet, setting off in their spaceship, but a strong wind has caught them and sent them off, you know, flying into orbit and into the path of Earth. And while they got over the Western Isles, their ship began to break up, and eventually your wee alien Mandy landed on top of the water tower in Benbecula. The local people then help, obviously, and decide that they're going to help collect the spaceship parts and rebuild to then let the little alien get back to their home planet. So we're starting to build up here now what we've got. So we've got the character, we have got a setting, and I haven't actually said a specific period in time, but I guess when you're thinking about your game, you can decide, you know, is it going to be, is it set just now? Is it set in the past? Is it set in the future? Maybe you don't have a particular time period at all. Okay. My particular game is an open world game. So again, you decide, are you going to have, when you're playing a game, you can either have levels, but your levels can be in order. You'll complete them, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll have them in a linear fashion, or you can just have it as a non-linear where you complete in any order. Okay, if you think about Minecraft, you can go about the world and complete tasks. Okay, other games you have to actually complete. So one of the games that I play, Super Mario Worlds, you've basically got to complete the levels in order from 1 to 99, right? So it all just depends on what you want to happen. For me, this game is about exploration, so therefore you can do it in any order you want, but you've got to end up back in one particular place to actually get the spaceship constructed, and you leave from the airport there. So I've just got a little map there just to kind of plan out, show you roughly where this is taking place. Game mechanics, essentially, they're just like the instructions that make the game fun and fair. That's all game mechanics are. How do you play the game, right? What do you need? So, for example, if say you're playing Pokemon Go, you have to go about collecting Pokemon, right? You're playing Minecraft, you have to go about collecting items to make other items in the game. Other games like Roblox, like Fortnite actually, as one that you would go about, and you're working on your own, or you might work in a team, and you are obviously the objective of that is to shoot the other team essentially. So these kind of games, all your games. FIFA is another one, so your football game. Again, mechanics of that is you're playing in a team and you've just got to beat the other team. So that essentially applies to any game that you're playing, whether it's a digital game or it's a board game, essentially. So my game, the rules are you've got to travel around and ask locals, right? You've got to get help to go to the different islands. And then the staff will help you get it fixed. I've created my little character list. So this is my list of what we call NPCs or non-playable characters. Right? If you think about any games that you play, who are the non-playable characters in those games? Are they there to help you, or are they there to actually, get in your way? So are they good or bad? Right? If anybody plays Animal Crossing, you will know that there's a lot of NPCs in that game because you've got your villagers. They're all there to help you, but there's a lot of NPCs. You've got the villagers. You also have your characters like, Tom Nook, obviously, who runs the place, and you've got to keep paying off your mortgage to him. So that's a goal of the game as well, is you've got to earn bells to go and pay off your mortgage for your house there. So think about so I've got quite a lot of NPCs in this game, but they're going to help with sort of different parts of the game. Okay, you get your wee postman in his van to help you get around. You've got local people with their local knowledge that you'll have a guide for each island to help direct you to particular places. You've got a little cafe that will help give you fuel because obviously you'll need energy to get round. You've got the mechanics that are going to help you put your ship back together. And then the final two people will help you are the person who has got the fuel. So you're going to have to get more fuel in your spaceship to get you back home. And obviously the person who works at the airport. Okay. I'm going to apologise now to my sister-in-law's side of the family for maybe a little bit of using some names there and jobs. But it's a way to kind of show you how you start to think and build up your characters in your game. So I've got my main character, but I've got all these characters then who you don't play, but they're the ones that help you actually complete the game. Right. You can then break this down further, right? How many parts has your spaceship been broken into, and where have they landed? Right, so whereabouts, there's a few different islands there, right? So where have they landed? How many bits? How many parts can the postman carry? Is it a case of you can maybe get one or two parts at a time and you go back, and then it's up to you to then start to break these things down and think about this for your game, right? So you start off with, you know, your small idea. You can see how we've already started with our wee idea of just spaceship crashing to then breaking it down into finer detail, okay? And you'll keep going with that. Please don't, what can I say? Concept art is, yeah, not my strong point. Design, right? So once you've got your ideas down, right, you get sketching. And this is called your concept art, right? You'll have something, right? It gives you a clearer idea of what you're thinking. So once you have your ideas down on paper, you want to start drawing, right? So what do the characters look like? What does the spaceship look like? Okay, and here you'll see my couple ideas for the ships and a couple ideas for my wee character. Okay, and this is where the concept art, you don't, obviously it's just sketches. This is not what the final form will look like, right? You're just getting your idea down on paper, and in the sort of the games company, your concept art, the artist will then hand that over to the other artists, whether that's your 2D artists or your 3D artists. And again, that's something to mention there. Your game, is it going to be a 3D game like Minecraft? Okay, so where you're walking around, or is it simply like a platform game, 2D on the screen? So it's something to consider, the difference between your 2D and your 3D, right? So yeah, that's my little ideas. Pick my favourite colours and some rough sketching, we shall say. Okay, but the sketches help you then start to bring your game to life, essentially. Once you've got all this down, everything is then collated. Everything you've collated is essentially, it becomes a game design document. And this document is what you let others see. We do it in college. My students make game design documents when they're coming up with their games. Games companies have game design documents as well to obviously build up the information for their game. And it just includes everything that we've covered, you know, your characters, how you play the game, concept art through to the actual art as well. So that's what you'll end up with at the end of this, is essentially is a game design document. Then if you're to take that further, you'll use that, obviously you would use that to then go and make the actual game, whatever platform you were using. So put this up, and this is essentially your theme for the game jam. Obviously there was some kind of small hints throughout, the fact that I have badly maybe used some Gaelic throughout. My sister-in-law will kill me. This is a theme for your game, right, is Scotland. I want you to all to sort of start thinking now, what does Scotland mean? When you hear that word, okay, what does that mean? Right? Is there anything that you think of instantly when you hear that word? What jumps out at you when you hear it? And that's something that'll be your first sort of task, is to kind of break down, right? Well, these are the things I associate with Scotland. Okay. I've got some resources as well to help with that. But essentially, that is going to be your task for this game jam, as you're going to come up with a game idea based around Scotland. My students have done it in the past as well, and it's now your turn to come up with a game based around that theme, based around that word Scotland. Okay, I've given, your teachers will have worksheets and things for you just to give you a help as well along the way. Okay, and George will share everything with the schools after the session this morning. I've given him given him some information, and I'll just quickly show the worksheets that I've got to sort of So there's a couple of worksheets there and some notes for teachers as well. So we've got a capture worksheet. And this essentially, it helps you get some ideas down, okay? So your character, game mechanics. You can also think about where you're going to play this game, right? So the platform, controller, how are you going to control the game? Are you using your keyboard or are you using a game controller, right? And your theme, which obviously your given theme is Scotland. So you can kind of explore that there. The other sheet is looking at how you interact, right? So you can draw on screen and you can look at the different events. So if you take my game idea, right, I would have my, let's say we've got the water tower, and I would have my character and maybe a couple of the spaceship parts. So they would all be there. So then you're looking at the interactions, and it would be going to collect those. So collecting a spaceship part, putting it in the van, right, and then moving it back to obviously the water tower. Think about how this happens. If you want, you can actually, so as well as doing things on paper, you can actually prototype your game. So you can actually come up with a sort of a paper-based prototype, or you can use objects like, for example, if you've got any little blocks, Lego blocks, or kind of little blocks you use for maths, or Play-Doh, and you can come up with a paper version you can come up with a little version of your game that you can try out just to see if a certain mechanic works. Okay. And it helps you to clear up. Okay, well, actually, maybe that idea it won't work in the game. It might be too difficult, or it'll give you, you can think, well, actually, this is a good idea. Let's keep this in the game. So these things will help you along the way to come up with your ideas, okay, and to help make your game better. And like I say, everything it's all on paper. It's a non-digital one, but this would, if you were to take it further, that's what would happen. You would use your game design document to actually, bring this game to life. So thank you for listening.